Okay, still morning, so good morning, everybody. I'm thinking a lot. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, and I'm trying to, ask my viewers, what is it that you would like to see from my videos? Do you enjoy more the religious commentary, the political commentary, the popular culture commentary, a mix of a few different things? And I was also thinking perhaps to make a commercial to explain what this channel is about. What do you think I should mention on that? So give me some ideas in the comments below. Thank you. I appreciate that, because I know I have a very good solid fan base who are very faithful, and I'm thankful to them. I would like to grow it and see what we can do to grow the fan base. There were 2 YouTube videos that I watched today. That could be another thing. I comment on other YouTube videos. Also, I like to answer questions based on what people request in the comments. I'll make videos on those subjects. I really believe it's divine providence that I saw these 2 videos today. They really touched me in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. Hearing things that one was kind of a revelation to me to a certain extent, and one was things that I've felt for a long time, but was happy to find someone of authority backing this up with first-hand, knowledge of these things in support of this, what I said. Although quite often the way I might express these things are a little different, but I see it's coming from a good source. The first one was more political, and the second one was more religious. And the political one was much more eye-opening to me. And I'm just amazed by the brilliance. The first one, the political one, was from Ben Shapiro. And someone was arguing with him about the question of whether or not health care is a right. And I have always been uncomfortable with this question. My gut would tell me no, and yet part of my conscience would tell me yes. And so, what happened here? I need to get into one of these things. Alright, it's like this. How's that? Alright. So, it would seem obvious to me, no, healthcare is not actually a right. Although it's clearly a need. And I think that's something that we have to recognize. We were brought up as kids being taught about the difference between wants and needs. But our needs, rights, this is not what Ben said there, but the way he expressed it, though, and maybe I'll put, if I actually have time to go back, I never have time to actually deal with that, with the videos and stuff, but I would perhaps even put a link to this video below, because it's such an important video, because I was struggling with this question of how do we say that healthcare is not a right? And I think the knee-jerk reaction to say healthcare is not a right is like, how dare you deny people healthcare? But then the thing is that socialized medicine obviously was not the answer, because socialized medicine is constantly denying people health care. And although he didn't frame it in the terms of wants and needs, but rather in the term of commodity versus right. The end goal, at least that Ben Shapiro has, is that the maximum amount of people should have access to health care. But when you transform that into a right instead of a commodity, so then it's self-defeating because it removes people from having access to health care. And so the way I'm going to explain it, I would say you should watch the video from Ben Shapiro, because the way he expresses it, like he says, I don't have to, you could just watch the video. I don't have to say what he said, but he said, if my life depended on I need an armchair, I would go and get a $5 armchair, even though it's going to break in a month or two. I mean, I once bought a $15 armchair, and it lasted me a couple of years. But you don't have that choice in the free market when it comes to getting an X-ray. The X-ray has to cost hundreds of dollars, and then you go to the insurance company, and you have this whole game that you play, and that's just all that does is make the whole thing more difficult. And then he brought the example of LASIK eye surgery, which used to be extremely expensive, and because it's not covered by insurance, it's not in that world, so the prices have gone down because of the free market and competition. And that would be the healthy way instead of the overregulation. But rather, and I've said for years we need tort reform rather than, these types of things, because that's where a lot of these things come from, is because of the unfettered tort system that we have in America. I mean, coming from the Jewish tradition, where torts, the laws of torts are central to the Talmudic tradition. Not my favorite things to study in the Talmud, personally, but they are considered the classics of the Talmud, are the laws of torts. It shows that the fact that it's so complicated and so well thought out in the Jewish tradition shows that this is something that has to be well thought out. It can't just be this unfettered system. I mean, we believe that at least a great deal of our tort system comes from Scripture, comes from God. It's right out of Exodus. But that's what has destroyed the American healthcare system, is the unfettered nature of the tort system, which needs to be addressed and fixed. He didn't address that, but these are things that I'm adding, commenting on what he said, and I think they're behind the scenes of what he's talking about there. Well, the other video that I watched, I listened to, was from Harav Victor Miller, someone I had the schus to meet twice at least, maybe 3 times. I'm trying to remember. I know for sure I was there twice. Rabbi Miller was a giant. And the name of the video was Who Caused the Holocaust? And he said, people, they're always like, how dare you even question, and this and that, and we're not prophets, and this and that, and we're not big enough gedolim to make these types of pronouncements. But the thing is, he says it's clear that the Holocaust was caused by the wicked members of the Jewish people. And he said he was in Europe in the 1930s. He's an American boy who went to study in Slobodka Yeshiva in Lithuania. And he saw with his own eyes the deterioration of the Jewish communities there. How they fell into Marxism, atheism, liberalism. And he said the same thing today. Those are our enemies. He said, this video is probably from the 80s. He said, it's at the end of the video, he said, we have to vote for conservative candidates. He said, it goes without saying, it's better to vote for a pious, conservative, Catholic Italian than to vote for a liberal Jew. And that the liberal Jews are the enemies of the Jewish people, and really, in a certain sense, the enemies of the world. Because the blessings to the whole world, I mean, it come through the Jewish people. He didn't say this exactly, but this is certainly something that we're taught. And we know this to be true. Two of the greatest blessings that the world has today are Christianity and Islam. As much as these groups have problems, but the ideas of ethical monotheism that were spread through these two great religions both come from what God gave when He gave the Torah to the world. And these ideas were spread through these other religions, the Torah ideas. And although there has been abuses and there are problems in these communities, they're not central to the basic ideas of these faiths, which are ethical monotheism. Both of these faiths are that's their basis, which are the ideals of the Torah. And the left want to destroy all of that. And so that they are really the enemies of the world. And unfortunately, a lot of these people claim some kind of Jewish heritage, but there's nothing Jewish about them. They're the biggest enemies of Judaism, biggest enemies of Torah, biggest enemies of everything godly and good in the world. This is what Rabbi Miller's saying. This he openly said. And he said, if there wasn't a Holocaust, can you imagine how much worse it would have been? As bad as it is now. Baruch Hashem, after the Holocaust, there were people like Rabbi Miller, people like Rav Moshe Feinstein, like Satmar Rav, who trying to bring Judaism back. And unfortunately, though, we still have a lot of these enemies who are bringing us away from the authentic Torah path. And not only bringing us away, we could forgive. All right, they want to sit together in shul, things like that. That's not the biggest issue. The big issues are the things that are central. The attacks on family values, the attacks on just basic human decency, and all things that are holy. Husband and wives, they want to sit together in shul. We could, that's the least of our problems. It's a big problem, but it's like the other video I watched from Ben Shapiro. He's talking about the Redskins issue. He said there's so many other issues facing the Native American community, and they're worried about Washington Redskins. The same thing. There so many issues facing the world, and we focus on the mechitza. There's a time and a place for everything. When somebody is bleeding, but their arm is going to get cut off, and you give them a little Band-Aid, that's not. We gotta fix things in a big way. All right, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe.